Hi all students, hope all are doing great. All are busy in studies, right? Okay, so this is our fifth video. In this video we are going to discuss block 2 PYQs and answers. We already posted block 1 PYQs and answers. Okay, so those who visited it, please continue the journey with us, and those who yet to visit the channel, please visit the channel, go through the contents, and if you like it, please share and subscribe the channel. Okay, your likes are acting as a motivator for us to making more videos. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so the first question of this section is, what do you mean by memorandum of a company or MOA of a company, and what are its various clauses? Okay, so memorandum of association is a charter and it defines the limitation of the powers of a company. So what are the limitations of the powers of a company is clearly defined in MOA. So we can say that it explains the fundamental conditions upon which the company is allowed to be incorporated. So it is acting as a constitution, like like the constitution of a company. It's act as a constitution of, like the constitution of a country. This MOA act as a constitution of a company, right? Okay, so what are the features of memorandum of association? So the first feature is it explains the nature of business activities to be conducted by the company. So what business the company is going to carry, so that has to be clearly mentioned in the MOA. So that's the first thing, the nature of business. Okay, second point is it should be prepared by the promoters of the company. We discussed about promoter is the person who has to be actively involved in the formation stage of an organization or a company. So he is supposed to prepare the MOA of a company. Then memorandum of association should be signed by at least 7 people in the case of a public company, and in the case of a private company it is 2. It is submitted to the register of the companies for registration. So one we discussed under the certificate of incorporation, that is we discussed the different stages involved in the formation of a company. There we discussed first stage is the promotion, second stage is the registration, and the last stage is the commencement. So there under registration of the companies, there are several documents the company has to submit before the register of the companies and to get approval, and that one of the most important document that has to be submitted before the register is the MOA, right? Then the fifth point is it is an unalterable charter. So once the things are clearly mentioned in the MOA, it's quite difficult to amend it. So that's why we used to say it is an unalterable charter. Then it is a public document. One of the important point is it is a public document. Once MOA is submitted and it got approval, and then that implies it's a public document that it can be inspected by any individual when necessary. Okay, then any act done beyond the powers of the memorandum is considered as an ultra vires the act. What do you mean by ultra vires? The last video also we discussed about ultra vires. So ultra vires means beyond the power. Okay, beyond the power. So if any activity or any functions that has been done beyond the power of MOA is considered as an invalid one, right? It is not legally valid. So these are the important point coming under MOA. So MOA is a charter. It is considered as a constitution of a company, and features include it should be prepared by the promoter, and in the case of a public company 7 subscribers should be signed in that document, and in the case of private it is 2, and it's an unalterable charter. It's quite difficult to make an amendment in MOA. So it is a public document, and anyone who has an interest in the affairs of the company can check it. Okay, so any act that is done beyond the powers of MOA is considered as an ultra vires act. Okay, type of acts are legally invalid, right? Okay, so now we are going to discuss the important clauses of MOA. So first important clause is name clause. Okay, so under name clause we have to remember the important points are, while you are selecting the name, your company's name must not be similar to an existing company. So that's the first point. Second point is that must be agreeable to the government terms and condition. Then the third one is names that are prohibited under the emblem, and names cannot be used for incorporating a company. Then another point is that if you have running a private company with limited shares, it should end with the name with private limited, right? If it's a public company, the limited should be the last word. So these are the important points coming under name clause. You have to remember that your name should not be matching with the similar existing company. Then if it's a public company, it should end with limited, and if it's a private company with limited shares, then it should be private limited. Okay, so now we are moving to the second clause, that is registered office clause. So under registered office clause, the company should have a registered office, and the name and address of the registered office should be mentioned clearly in the memorandum. So once the company is getting incorporated, within 15 days company has to find a registered office, and within 30 days it has to done the registration, the verification of that registered office. So under registration of office clause, two terms are there. One is domicile and second one resident. So there is a difference between domicile of the company and resident of the company. For example, if XYZ company is a Gujarat based company, okay, but the actual owners of the company are from Maharashtra, okay, so we can say that residents of the company, that is the who are the managers or the who runs the company, that is Maharashtrians are the company. So the resident of the company is Maharashtra, but domicile of the company is Gujarat. Okay, so that is the important thing coming under registered office. I hope it's clear. Now we are moving to the next clause. Okay, the third clause is object clause, and the object clause implies that each company has to specify the objective for which the company is being incorporated. Okay, so what is the real intention behind the incorporation of the company should be clearly mentioned, and if the company deviates from the objective mentioned in the MOA, so it is an ultra vires act. Okay, it is said to be an ultra vires, it's beyond the power of the company. Okay, so that type of activity will be considered as a legally invalid one. Okay, then object of the company should be stated clearly without any ambiguities, without any uncertainties, or without any vague expression. The company has to clearly mention it objective, otherwise it will be counted as an illegal one. So then object should not be against the provision of the company. That means it should be in line with the Companies Act. It should not be against the public policy. So these are the important point coming under object clause, that is the company has to specifically mention it object clause, and for what purpose the company is being incorporated, and the company has to follow this, and if it deviate from the objective, it is an ultra vires act, and that object should be considered as a legally invalid one. Okay, so the object must be in line with the public policy, and it should not be against the provisions as described in the Company Act of 2013 or any other previous act. Okay, now the next clause is capital clause. So the capital clause must indicate the amount the company is registered, or as it is known as registered or authorized or nominal capital. Okay, so capital clause means indicate the amount of capital with which the company is registered. So that is known as registered or authorized or nominal capital. Okay, so that is coming under section 4(1)(e). Clear? Okay, so the last two clauses are association clause or subscription clause and the liability clauses. So in the association clause, it implies in the MOA, the company has to clearly mention the amount of capital and the share that has been taken by each member or subscriber, and each subscriber has to put their sign in the MOA at least in the presence of at least one witness, and each subscriber must take at least one share, and the quantity of the share that has been taken by each subscriber has to be mentioned clearly in the MOA. So that's all coming under association clause. Then under liability clause, it states the liability of the member. So the liability implies the limited liability by shares capital, or limited liability by guarantee, or unlimited liability. So the liability of the member has to be clearly mentioned in the MOA. So these are the important clauses of MOA. So first is name clause, second one is registered office clause, third one is object clause, and the fourth one is liability clause, and the fifth one is the capital clause, okay, and the sixth one is subscription clause. Okay, so it's an important question, please concentrate in this question, right? Then along with that, you have to remember one more point, that is for a 1% company in the MOA, it has to clearly mention who become the member of the company if the death of the subscriber happened. That has to be clearly mentioned in the MOA. Now we are moving to the next important topic, that is doctrine of ultra vires. So ultra vires, it is a Latin word that means, ultra means beyond and vires means power or authority. So that is ultra vires means beyond the power. Okay, so anything that is beyond the power or authority is known as ultra vires. So memorandum of association is considered as the constitution of the company, that we already discussed. So it set out an external scope and area of the company's operations, with its objective, power, scope, all these things are clearly mentioned in the MOA. So the company is authorized to act within that content. Okay, if it go beyond the clauses mentioned in the MOA, it is a ultra vires act, that is beyond the authority or beyond the power. Okay, anything which is beyond the object authorized by the memorandum is an ultra vires act. Okay. Okay, so we discussed about ultra vires act. Now we are going to discuss what do you mean by intra vires. Intra vires means within the legal power or authority of a person or official or body. So that means those acts that the company has the power to do, so that are considered as intra vires act. So under ultra vires act, there are mainly three type of ultra vires. So first is to the company act, beyond the powers that are mentioned in the company act. Second one is beyond the memorandum of association. Third one is beyond the article of the company. So first is ultra vires to the company act. So if a company is doing certain activity that is against the power mentioned in the company law, or company act, that is an ultra vires to the company act. Example, the payment of dividend out of capital. Then second one is ultra vires to the MOA. So the company, as per the, for example, as per the MOA, the companies has to use it fund for the objective that is clearly mentioned in the MOA. But if the company is using it fund for other objective that is not mentioned in the MOA, so it is clearly an ultra vires act beyond the power as far the MOA is concerned, right? Now we are moving to the okay. So the last one is the act that are ultra vires to the article but intra vires to the memorandum. What it implies? So certain activities that are intra vires to the memorandum. So memorandum is the main document and the subordinate document is article of association. So certain activities are ultra vires to the article. So as per the article, these activities are beyond the power of the article. Okay, so but those activities are intra vires to the MOA. So within the power of MOA, those activities can be carried out. So that we can say that the payment of interest on advance calls at a higher rate than allowed by the article. So by the article, a rate is allowed. Okay, so if it is paying the interest on advance calls at a higher rate that prescribed in the article, okay, it is a ultra vires act as per the article is concerned. As per the article, it is beyond the power, but as per the MOA, it is intra vires. As per the MOA, the company can do it. Okay, so that is the ultra vires to the article but intra vires to the MOA. Okay, now we are going to discuss the effect of ultra vires transaction. What are the effect of ultra vires transaction? So first effect is void ab initio, that is it is a void act from the beginning. Second one is estoppel or ratification. So ratification ratification means you are making an act that was previously done to be a legally valid one. So that is ratification. But in the case of an ultra vires transaction, ratification is not possible. Then the fourth one is personal liability of directors. Directors that have the duty to ensure that the corporate capital of the company is used for legitimate purpose. Okay, it's a duty of the director is to make sure that the fund of the company should be used for the legitimate purpose, and it should be in line with the of the company. Okay, if it has done something other than the things mentioned in the MOA of the company, okay, it will attract the personal liability of the directors, personal liability for the directors. Okay, so these are the important effects of ultra wire transaction. Okay, so first, void ab initio, that is a void one. Second one is ratification is not possible, it cannot be enforceable. Then personal liability, the liability of the directors. So director who is in charge of these activities will be liable for their duties, right? Okay, now the next question. Okay, as of now we discussed what you mean by MOA, what are the contents or what are the clauses involved in MOA. Then we discussed what you mean by ultra wires and what you mean by intra wires, what are the effect of ultra wire activities, right? Now the third question is, what is article of association, state its content and explain us how it can be altered, right? So according to the Company Act of 2013, Section 25, article means article of an association of a company as originally framed or as altered from time to time in pursuance of any previous company law or of this act. Article can be amended, or it can be altered from time to time in line with the previous Company Act or the current act. Okay, so the article helps to establish the relationship between the company and the internal management. So the internal guidelines, so the guidelines and regulations that are necessary for the day-to-day running of an or day-to-day function of an organization or a company is clearly mentioned in the article. So that's why I told you it is dealing with the internal affairs of a company, right? So these are the important contents of article of association. First one is directors. So the guideline regarding the appointment of directors are clearly mentioned in the AOA. Then general meeting, the basic framework of all the general meeting, how to be conducted and what is the gap between the two annual general meeting and how to be conducted and what is the procedure involved in it. All these things should be there in the article. Okay, then third one is accounting and auditing. Provisions in AOA will define the guideline that is subjected to the auditing of the auditing as well as the accounting company, right? Now the shareholders, the AOA streamlined the subdivision of share capital of the company, including the right of the shareholders, relation of this right with the other element of the company. So the shareholders have to pay the whole or the part of the remaining unpaid amount on each share purchased on company's demand. So the call on shares, it's an important point. What do you mean by call on shares? Sometimes you will get these type of questions along with the big question. Okay, maybe sometimes you will get 5 plus 2, 5 plus 3 plus 2 plus 2, right, like that. Okay, so we have to remember these type of short by call on shares. Okay, so call on shares means the shareholders has to. Okay, so the next important point of article of association is the company has the eligibility to retain the shares of those members who fail to pay the debt to the company, and these members will not be allowed to transfer their shares to other members unless they pay their debt. Okay, then the transfer and transmission of shares. In the next unit we will discuss the difference between these two. The transfer and transmission of shares, these procedures are clearly mentioned in the AOA. Then forfeiture and surrender of shares. What are the procedure involved in the forfeiture of the shares or the surrender of the shares allotted? All are clearly mentioned in the AOA. Then conversion of shares in stock. Company can pass an ordinary resolution in a general meeting to convert their shares into stock. Okay, so these all things are clearly described in the AOA along with their guidelines. Okay, then issuing share warrant. Public limited companies are eligible to issue a share warrant, and that also is mentioned in the AOA. So these are the important contents of Okay, then alteration of the capital. Similar to the conversion of shares into stock, AOA also provide the rules or of the procedures to alter capital as per the company's interest. Okay, then voting right. AOA note down the specific company matters, what calls for voting by the members as well as the procedure of voting, whether by poll or by through proxies. All these voting related things also mentioned. Then dividends and reserve, distribution of dividend among the shareholders, procedure involved in it, and the guideline for the same also there in the AOA. Then final one is winding up. The winding up of a company that we discussed in an elaborate manner in the last video. So those who didn't watch the video, please watch that, so the concepts will be clear. So winding up of the company means the liquidation of the asset, that is the it's the beginning process of dissolution. Dissolution means company ceases its operation, no longer company is existing as per the as per legal ground. Okay, so that is not dissolution. Winding up means it's the beginning process, right? So the winding up process, the procedure involved in the winding up, all these things are clearly mentioned in the AOA. In short, we can say that AOA is the internal management guideline, how to run an organization and how to manage the internal affairs of the company in an efficient manner has to be clearly mentioned in the AOA. Okay, so these are the important content of AOA. Clear? Okay, so the next important question is alteration of article. So we discussed how to convert the private company into public company and conversion of a public company into private company. These all things we discussed in block number 1. Okay, there I told you that is for the conversion the article should be amended. I hope many of you remember it. Okay, those who didn't, please check that video, right? So while the company is getting converted from a private to public, that means the company is then in a private company the minimum number of member is 2, but in a public company it is 7. So when it is getting converted into a public company, the minimum number should change to 7. Okay, along with that, in a private company the name is private limited. Once it's converting into public company, it has to change its name from private limited to public company, that is limited, right? So these all alterations are happened by passing the special resolution, that also we discussed in first block, that is how to convert a public company into private company and private company into public company, right? Okay, so next important question is difference between MOA and AOA. Okay, so what do you mean by MOA? That is Memorandum of Association. What do you mean by AOA? That is Article of Association. Okay, let's get started, right? So first difference is MOA is the fundamental data, that is the constitution of a company. So while the incorporation of a company happens, that has this MOA should be submitted. Then it must be registered at the time of incorporation of the company. But in the case of Article of Association, it is a subordinate document and it should contain all the rules and regulations that govern the day-to-day activity of an organization. Okay, second point is that it is not necessary that the article of the organization should be registered at the registered at the time of incorporation, right? So it is necessary that MOA should be registered, but AOA is not necessary to be registered during the incorporation, right? Then AOA is not the supreme document, it is the subordinate document, but MOA is the supreme document. Then the fourth point is that it does not provide the company with the power to do something against the provisions of the Company Act. Okay, then in AOA it cannot exceed the powers contained in the MOA as it is a subsidiary document. So that we already discussed, certain acts that are ultra vires to the AOA is intra vires as far as MOA is concerned. Okay, then MOA has 6 clauses. Which are the 6 clauses? First is the name clause, second one is liability clause, third one is object clause, then fourth one is capital clause, fifth one is the subscription clause, and the sixth one is the capital clause. So these are the 6 clauses of MOA. So in AOA, according to the decision of the company, it can be drafted. Okay, then the 6th point is MOA contain the power and objective of the company. What is the objective of the company? The power and the scope of the company is clearly mentioned in the MOA. In AOA, provide the rules by which this objective has to be implemented. How to get that objective, how to achieve the goals of the company. So that is clearly mentioned in AOA, right? Then MOA is the dominant instrument and it controls the article of association. Okay, then AOA, the provision which is invalid to the memorandum will be declared as invalid, right? So MOA is the supreme document, AOA is the subordinate document. AOA is completely dealing with the internal affairs or the internal management of a firm or a company, but MOA is the supreme document and it contains the objective as well as the power of the organization. Then MOA has 6 clauses. In the case of AOA, the decision of the, as per the decision of the company, it can be drafted. So these are the important difference between MOA and AOA. It's an important question. Please study it well, right? Okay. Now, binding of memorandum and article. Okay, so members bound to the company. So the members cannot contravene the provisions of the article of association or the MOA. Once they have subscribed to such document, they are completely bound by it. So they cannot go beyond the things mentioned in the MOA and AOA. They have to follow the follow the clauses mentioned in the MOA and AOA. Then company to the members. A company has to follow all the provisions of the MOA and AOA. It cannot contravene it. As such, the provisions have been subscribed to and agreed by the shareholders. The company would be answerable to the shareholders if any alteration happened or any change or any deviation from this from the MOA or AOA happened. The company is answerable to its shareholders. So it is binding to the company as well as to this binding to the members also. The members bound to members. Members are bound among themselves due to the provisions of the article of association, but they can enforce their right only in the capacity of being a member and not an individual, and such rights can be only enforced through the company. Okay, so not bound to outsiders. Neither the company nor the members are bound to the outsiders by the provisions of the article. Directors of the company are bound by whatever is contained in the article. Okay, so who are binded by the memorandum and article? So the members are bound to the company. So the members of the company have to follow the clauses mentioned in the AOA and MOA. Then company to the members, the company also has to follow, and if company deviate from any of the clauses mentioned in MOA and AOA, it has to answer to the members. Then members, among the members also, members are also has to follow the MOA and AOA, and they have to they will get the right as the members of a company, not as individual rights. Okay, so it is not bound to the outsiders. So that these all are the important points. Okay, so next two important rules are constructive notice of memorandum and articles. Okay, so we already discussed that MOA and AOA are public documents once it got registered. The company got registered. After the registration of the company, MOA and AOA are public document. So it is taken for granted that everyone who deals with the company can access these document. Okay, and they can go through it. Okay, so it can be held that anyone dealing with the company is presumed not only have to read the MOA and AOA, but they have to understood them properly. So thus memorandum and article of a company are presumed to be noticed to the public. Such a notice is called constructive notice. Okay, so constructive notice means MOA and AOA are legal documents of a company, but that can be a public document once the incorporation of the company happened. So anyone who has an interest in the affairs of the company can access these documents, and they can go through it, and they should learn that. Okay, if they want to make a deal with the company. So what is the legal effect of these constructive notice? If a person deal with the company in a manner which is inconsistent with the provision contained in the MOA or AOA on risk and cost and shall bear the consequence thereof. That means you already published a notice regarding this the way the company is going to run. So these are the things happening in the company, and all the details are clearly mentioned to the public as per the MOA and AOA, since it is easily accessible to them. Okay, so as per the rule of constructive notice, those who want to make a deal with the company how to go through this document and how to learn with it, and in later some wrong things happen, it's not the fault of the company, but it's a fault of the person who is making the deal with the company, right? They have to make the deal with their own risk, right? Why? Because the documents are already there. It's their duty to go through it and how to learn it before getting into the deal with the company. So that is known as the constructive notice of MOA and AOA. Okay, now we are moving to the next rule, that is doctrine of indoor management or Turquoise rule. Okay, so what is this rule dealing with? Basis of doctrine or of indoor management means the internal matters of a company are not meant for public knowledge. Okay, a third party can only presume the intention of the company but cannot ascertain the information that is private to. And the doctrine of indoor management is exactly the opposite of doctrine of constructive notice. So doctrine of constructive notice is saying that, so these documents are public one, you can access it, you can learn it, and you have to study it before making a deal with us. Something happened in future, we are not responsible. That's the company is not responsible, you are responsible, right? So that is the content of constructive notice. But when we are discussing about the doctrine of indoor management, it implies that, okay, the public can access this document, but the internal affairs of the company is completely a private matter. So those who are outsiders, they can presume these all things are happening, may happen or may not happen. Okay, so that is doctrine of indoor management. It's completely against the doctrine of constructive notice. So according to Turquoise rule, it is not the responsibility of the person who is dealing with the company to incur those internal proceedings related to the contract are followed if such person is satisfied that the transaction he or she enters into in accordance with MOA and AOA. So this doctrine states that people who are dealing with the company to presume that the internal proceedings are according to the documents which is submitted to the registered. Okay, so that means according to the Turquoise rule, it's not the responsibility of the person who is dealing with the company to inquire. So they are as per the document, it's they are presuming, okay, so this is the way it's happening, so these are mentioned in the AOA, so they have to presume it. Okay, so it clearly mentioned that the person who are dealing with the company to presume that the internal proceedings are according to the document which is submitted to the register. So that is as per the AOA, the things are clearly happening in the organization, they don't need to more inquire about it. So that is doctrine of indoor management or Turquoise rule. Okay, so exceptions to the doctrine of indoor management. So we already discussed constructive notice. In the case of constructive notice, who has to take the risk? The person who is making the deal has to take the risk. Okay, so in the case of doctrine of indoor management, the person who is making the deal will get a benefit of, he's not aware of all the things may happen, all the things that are happening inside the organization. He's not aware of the internal affairs of the company. He is only relying on the documents that are submitted before the register by the company, that is AOA and MOA. Okay, clear. But there are certain exceptions also. Under the certain circumstances, that protection will be waived off. Okay, so the first is knowledge of irregularity. For example, A is a person who wants to make a deal with XYZ company. Okay, so A know that the person who is talking to him on behalf of the company has certain fault in his behavior, right? He know that some irregularities are there. Okay, he is aware of the thing, and then again he is going ahead with the proposal or going ahead with the business. Then something wrong happens in future, the A is in fault, right? A cannot blame the company for the same, right? So that's the first one. Second one, forgery. A company is never bound by the forgery done by its officers. So this rule does not apply when a person relied on a forged document, as nothing can validate forgery. Okay, in the case of forced transaction, illegal transaction, or a transaction which are void ab initio, there's a lack of consent. Okay, so forgery happened, the company will not take the blame. Okay, so the officers who is in fault has to get punishment, right? Then negligence, if the person dealing with the company behave negligently, then it is in this case this doctrine will not apply. Then no knowledge of MOA and AOA, the rule cannot invoked in favor of a person who did not consult the MOA and AOA and thus did not rely on them. So if the person have no knowledge of MOA and AOA, then also this doctrine of indoor management protection will not be applicable. Then others, doctrine is not also applicable where a precondition is required to be fulfilled before company itself can access a particular power. So these are the exception case to doctrine of indoor management. So two rules are there, doctrine of indoor management as well as doctrine of constructive notice. So in short we can say that constructive notice, the person who is making the deal has to go through the MOA and AOA and then make the deal, and if something goes wrong in future he has to take the liability, right? But in the case of MOA, in the case of indoor management, the law is considering, like, the law is taken into consideration the ignorance of the person who is making the deal with the company regarding the internal management of the company. He is relying only on the documents that are submitted by the company to the register before the register. Okay, so something goes wrong in future, the company will be liable for the same. But there are certain exceptional case also, that is if the person who is making the deal with the company is aware of the irregularity and he is not known about MOA and AOA, and he rely more on a forced document and his negligence happened from his side. So in that circumstances, these protection from the protection as per the legal ground will not be applicable to the making the deal. Okay, so these are the exception of doctrine of indoor management. That's also an important question. What do you mean by doctrine of indoor management? What are the exceptional cases, right? Okay, next important question is define prospectus. State the liabilities of the company and the directors with respect to the misstatement in the prospectus. So what do you mean by prospectus? The section 2 subsection 70 of the Company Act of 2013 define a prospectus as any document that is described or issued as a prospectus and includes any notices, circular, advertisement or other document inviting deposit from the public or documents inviting offer from the public for the subscription of shares or debentures in the company. Who can publish the prospectus? Public company, right? So prospectus is not an advertisement, it's a invitation for the public, invitation towards the public for depositing in the company, right? So that is prospectus. So some misstatement, if some misstatement in the prospectus happen, what are the consequences? So the prospectus is a document inviting the prospective investors to subscribe for the shares and debentures of a company. Therefore it should contain full and honest material fact, and so no material fact should be considered. All the facts should be clearly described in the prospectus. So if concealing certain material fact, it's an offense, right? Misstatement may occur when a statement which is untrue or misleading in a form of context is included in the prospectus. Also, any inclusion or omission of any matter which is likely to mislead will also be a misstatement. So that is, misstatement occurs means certain untrue or misleading statement is there in the prospectus, so that is a misstatement. That's the first one. Second one, if any inclusion or omission, they omitted certain important data or important fact, that is also counted as a misstatement. So that you have to remember. So misstatement occurs when a statement which is untrue or misleading in the form of context is included. That's the first one. Then, or inclusion or omission of any matter which is likely to mislead. If any of these two things are prevailing, that is a misstatement in the prospect. It is definitely an okay. So now we are going to discuss the liability or the consequences. So civil liability for the misstatement in a prospectus. It will arise when a person has sustained any loss or damage by subscribing security of a company based on misleading prospectus. So as per the misleading statement described in the prospectus, someone faced a damage or loss in future loss by subscribing the security of a company, so the civil liability will arise. In such instant, the following person shall be liable under section 447. We will have to pay the compensation to the person who sustained such loss. Okay, then who has to pay the who has to pay the liability? First one, director of the company at the time of the issue of the prospectus. Person who has agreed to be named as the director in the prospectus, who is a promoter of the company or has an authorized issue of the prospectus, or an expert who has engaged or interested in the formation or the promotion or the management of the company. So these 5 people are liable for the penalty payment, right? Clear? So that is coming under civil liability. So civil liability arises only when there is a loss happened to the person who took the subscription from the company. Okay, so in that case, the director, promoter, or the expert who were involved in the formation or the promotion or the management of the company will be liable for the penalty payment, right? Now the next liability is criminal liability. So what do you mean by criminal liability? A person who authorized the issue of the prospectus which has untrue or misleading statement is liable for punishment under section 34. Such a punishment is for fraud, that is as per section 447, and if the fraud involves an amount of 10 lakh or more, or 1% of the turnover of the company, whichever is lower, the person who is found guilty of the fraud shall be punishable. So that is a person who authorized the issue. Who is authorized? So promoter is a person who is authorized for the issuing of prospectus, and he provided some untrue or misleading statements. Okay, so it's a criminal offense, and that that involves some fraud also. If some fraud things happen, okay, and the fraud amount is more than 10 lakh or 1% of the turnover of the company, whichever is lower, the person who is found guilty or fraud shall be punishable with an imprisonment of minimum term is 6 months, and it can extend up to 10 years. Okay, clear? Then next is, such a person shall also be liable to a fine of amount not less than the amount involved in the fraud, and fine may extend up to 3 times amount of such amount. If the fraud involves an amount less than 10 lakh or 1% of the turnover of the company and does not involve public interest, the imprisonment may extend to 5 years, or with a fine that extend up to 50 lakh or both. Okay. If the fraud in question involves public interest, the time of imprisonment shall not be less than 3 years. So these are the things coming under criminal liability. So what do you mean by prospectus, and what do you mean by misstatement in the prospectus, and what are the consequences of misstatement in the prospectus? So criminal liability and civil liability. If some loss happened, so that is a criminal civil liability, and if it is fraud associated with the misstatement or untrue statement, untrue statement that is provided in the prospectus, so it will be a criminal liability. In both cases penalties are there, okay, but the penalties as well as the imprisonment will be severe when it comes to criminal liability. Okay, that's the end of this video. In this video we covered almost all the important questions coming from book number 2. Okay, so MOA, AOA, prospectus, all these important things are covered. Okay, I hope this will be helpful for you. Okay, so as usual, if you like the content, please like, share and subscribe. Okay, and please share it with your friends so that it will reach to more people. It will be helpful for you as well as for the IGNOU community, right? Okay, so once we finish this paper, I am planning to start with monetary theory, the next paper. I think the exam will be on September 1st week, right? Okay, so those who are in need of the PDF of these notes, okay, I am planning to provide that. Okay, so if you need the PDF note, the Telegram link also will be provided in the description box. Okay, so please message the Telegram. Okay, so I will provide you with the PDF. Okay, so all the best for your exam. Try hard, concentrate more on studies. Okay, stay safe and stay healthy. So see you with next video within 1 or 2 days. Okay, thank you.